The movie opens on a high school girl named Rain, and she is already in serious trouble. She is sprinting through a dark forest at night while a man chases her. House lights flicker through the trees, so a neighborhood has to be close, but nobody comes to help. She hides behind a tree. It is not enough. The man grabs her, ties her wrists and ankles, and drops her into a hole he has already dug. Then he buries her alive. Rain claws her way up through the dirt. Just as she breaks the surface, a pair of hands drags her back down, and then everything changes. There is no forest. Rain is strapped to a hospital bed, and the entire kidnapping happened inside her head. Rain has schizophrenia, and what looked like an abduction was a hallucination. This is Fear of Rain. Afterward, the doctor suggests to her parents, John and Michelle, that they place Rain in a psychiatric facility. They refuse. They believe she can be treated at home and go back to school, especially since she has already missed so many classes during her long hospital stay. Once she stabilizes, Rain has a session with her psychiatrist, Dr. Pangloss. She tries to explain what she remembers. She was climbing to the second floor of her house, then she was somehow on a bus, then she saw a man dressed in black, and then she was in that forest. Dr. Pangloss corrects her. None of it happened. Rain never left the house. She was hallucinating and having a violent episode the entire time. The doctor is firm about one thing. Rain has to keep taking her medication to stay stable. The catch is that it dulls her mind and makes it harder to paint, which is the one thing she loves. But without the pills, her condition gets worse, and legally she could be forced into that facility. Since she is stable, the hospital sends Rain home. The drive back is tense, and her parents seem to be quietly arguing about how to handle her. Before Rain gets out of the car, the woman next door greets her. That neighbor is Mrs. McConnell, who also happens to be her teacher. Then Rain walks into her bedroom and freezes. The place is wrecked. The walls are covered in scratch marks and dried blood, and the mattress is shredded. This is the damage from her episode. She even apologizes to her father, because during that episode she scratched him without knowing it. Later, alone, she looks down at the cut on her hand and sees maggots crawling out of it. Another hallucination. Meanwhile, Michelle quietly says that all of this is her fault. John does not respond. The next morning, John makes Rain breakfast before school. She takes her medication and packs a dose to bring with her. He offers to drive her, but Rain wants to take the bus alone and asks her parents to stop worrying so much. School is rough. A group of girls bully her and insist she is not actually sick and just wants attention. But there is one bright spot. A classmate named Caleb seems interested in her. He does a small magic trick to break the ice, and for a second Rain honestly cannot tell if he is real or another illusion. That is the cruel part of her condition. She constantly has to separate what is real from what her mind invents. But Caleb checks out. He is a new transfer student, and he asks her to hang out sometime. Rain does not answer, still insecure about her own mind. After school, Rain stops by the pharmacy and runs into Mrs. McConnell again. When the woman greets her, Rain says nothing and hurries away. On the walk home, she hallucinates a baby girl being snatched by a dark figure. Back at the house, she takes her meds, and from her bedroom window, she spots a little girl standing in the attic window of Mrs. McConnell's house next door. Rain starts calling her Hillary. Soon after, Michelle reminds Rain not to lock her bedroom door, so her parents can reach her quickly if she has another episode. Rain vents about the bullying at school, and her mother tells her to ignore those girls. The next day, Rain finally goes out with Caleb in his beat-up old car. They talk, mostly about his obsession with cars, and it feels easy between them. Then it starts to rain, and they have to pull over because his windshield wipers are broken. The sound of the rain on the roof scrambles Rain's mind. She starts hearing a voice on the radio telling her to get out and run, and Caleb fidgeting with a Rubik's Cube makes it worse. But she holds herself together. Once the rain stops, he drives her home, and she almost tells him the truth about her condition. That night, Rain has a nightmare. She is back in the forest, seeing a stone angel, a buried body, and Hillary crying for help, while Mrs. McConnell drags her into the attic. Rain wakes up screaming, and her parents rush in. She insists she heard Hillary's voice through the window. John looks over at the house next door, but the attic is empty, and Mrs. McConnell does not even have a child. Still, to put his daughter at ease, he promises to take her over there the next day. So the next morning, John and Rain visit Mrs. McConnell, and John asks about Hillary. The teacher says she has no children and suggests the kid voices came from the family across the street. Rain is convinced she is lying, so Mrs. McConnell walks them up to the attic to settle it. There is nobody there. Just mannequins and dolls her late grandmother made, and she says she barely ever goes up anymore. Rain will not let it go. On the way home, she fights with her father, who does not believe a word of it. John is certain she is hallucinating, and he warns her to stay away from that house. Because if the police get involved, Rain could end up locked in a facility. At her next session, Rain admits the medication is making it hard to sleep, and she tells Dr. Pangloss about her suspicion that Mrs. McConnell is hiding a girl in the attic. The doctor offers a different explanation. Maybe Rain is projecting her own fear onto that house, the fear of being trapped. Her whole life is nothing but rules. Take your pills, hold back the panic, stay in line. Rain admits that might be true because she once imagined herself trapped inside one of her own paintings, surrounded by hospital staff, with the painted version of herself screaming to be let out. On the drive home, Rain goes quiet as they pass a cemetery. At school the next day, every kid seems to be staring at her like she is a freak. She bumps into Mrs. McConnell, then sees police officers arriving at the school, and becomes convinced the teacher reported her. Rain tells Caleb everything, that a child is being held prisoner by their teacher, and begs him to help. She skips her session with Dr. Pangloss, and on the way Caleb gives her a necklace he made himself. They head to Mrs. McConnell's house, betting it is empty since she is still teaching, and slip inside. The attic is locked, so they search the kitchen for a screwdriver, and Caleb finds a box of cereal, which makes him think a child really might be living here. Then Mrs. McConnell comes home early, and they barely get out before she catches them. Meanwhile, John is repairing Rain's bedroom, thinking back to happier times when she was little. That night, while Rain is showering, she sees blood pouring down the walls and forces herself to remember it is not real. Afterward, her mother suggests that maybe Caleb is an illusion too. Rain feels safe around him, but she breaks down crying anyway. John watches from a distance, and he and Michelle still never seem to be on the same page. The next day, Caleb takes Rain out again, and they get noticeably closer. They go to the library and search records of missing children by location, matching names to photos. And there she is, Hillary. Her real name is Malia Robinson, reported missing on January 7th, 2021 in North Carolina. Around this time, Caleb finally learns that Rain has schizophrenia. She explains that she hears voices and cannot always tell reality from hallucination. Caleb does not treat her like she is broken. He tries to understand. Then in class, Rain doubts him all over again. While Mrs. McConnell hands back exams, nobody reacts to Caleb joking around right beside her. So when class ends, Rain slips a folded piece of paper onto the teacher's desk. Because Rain ignored him all day, Caleb shows up at her house that night and comes straight to her room. She tells him she thinks he is just an illusion. He insists he is real, and he confesses his feelings for her. Then they hear a scream from the house next door. Rain is sure it is Malia. They plan to sneak in again, and Caleb smashes a garage window to get inside. But Mrs. McConnell hears the glass break and calls the police, certain Rain is breaking in. It turns out that folded paper Rain left on the desk was a drawing of Mrs. McConnell holding Malia captive. Now the teacher threatens to report her and have her locked away if she ever comes near the house again. John is furious. He tells Rain flat out that Caleb is not real, because Mrs. McConnell only saw Rain running from the house, nobody else. Rain tries to explain the strange things she noticed inside, a huge dollhouse sitting in the garage, and her theory that Mrs. McConnell used those dolls as bait to lure Malia. John does not want to hear it. He forces her to take her medication, and when Rain threatens to hurt herself, he slaps her without thinking.
Non, papa, arrête!
Prends-le!
The following night, Rain sees Malia again, clearer than ever, actually being carried by Mrs. McConnell. She begs Caleb to sneak over there with her, but he refuses, afraid of getting caught. To calm her down, he plays cards with her instead, and caught up in the moment, he kisses her. Then Michelle walks in to chat with Rain. She does not greet Caleb, and Caleb does not greet her. The next morning, Caleb is not at school, which convinces Rain even more that he was never real. Panicking now, Rain goes to see Dr. Pangloss, but the doctor's not in. On the way home, she wanders into the cemetery, pulled in by a voice calling her name. There she sees the stone angel from her nightmare and hallucinates blood pouring from its eyes. She gets home and finds her own reflection talking back to her in the mirror until she shatters the glass with her fist.
Elle va mourir et toi, tu seras... Tu es folle!
She cannot stop thinking about Malia, so she messages Caleb and begs him to help her one more time. Seeing the state of her daughter, Michelle desperately tries to calm her down, terrified that Rain will be taken away. But Rain ignores her. She only wants to save Malia. And then John arrives and says something that changes the entire movie. Michelle died 3 years ago. That grave Rain kept passing was her mother's. That is why Michelle said at the very beginning that all of this was her fault. Rain's schizophrenia first surfaced after her mother's death, a loss she was never able to accept. Rain has been hallucinating her mother alive this entire time. Suddenly it all lines up. Why John and Michelle never once actually spoke to each other. Why Caleb never greeted her. Nobody else could see her. John had been playing along, pretending Michelle was still in the house, because having her mother around made Rain happy, and he was waiting for the right moment to tell her the truth. Rain refuses to believe him. Still fixated on Malia, Rain climbs through the broken garage window with a kitchen knife and heads for the attic. But Mrs. McConnell has no evening class tonight, which means she will be home early. Up in the attic, Rain hallucinates one more time and comes face to face with her younger self and her late mother. And this time she lets go. She accepts that her mother is gone, and her mind finally clears. Then she finds a pile of crayons on the attic floor, and she thinks, if there is no child in this house, why are there crayons up here? Mrs. McConnell comes home and cranks up loud music, which covers the sound of Rain's footsteps. Rain sneaks down, swipes a set of keys, and tries them one by one on the basement door she was never able to open. Inside, she hallucinates again, but this time the vision clears. Malia's really there.
Malia.
Just as Rain moves to free her, Mrs. McConnell realizes her keys are missing and storms down with a metal rod. Seeing Rain holding the girl, she tries to scramble Rain's mind, insisting Malia is not real. But Rain steadies herself and holds on to what she knows is true.
Viens, Malia. Vite, dépêche-toi.
Right on time, Caleb bursts in. Mrs. McConnell keeps manipulating, claiming Caleb is not real either. It does not work. The two of them take her down together, and Rain gets Malia out. John arrives and is stunned by the truth. Malia was real all along, and so was Caleb. He is overwhelmed with pride for his daughter, and the police finally arrest Mrs. McConnell. Having accepted her mother's death and made peace with her condition, Rain can finally tell what is real from what is not, even though the voices still whisper from time to time. Because her schizophrenia scrambles and overlaps her memories, everything she went through was never simply a hallucination. Underneath all of it was grief. The grief of losing the mother she loved most in the world. So the moral of the story is, if your neighbor says, "There's definitely no child in my attic," maybe don't ignore it, but also maybe take your meds before launching your own FBI investigation.